The poll numbers are showing the American public is feeling more favorable about him than they are about, what the House Republicans.
No, actually, according to the recent Gallup poll, apparently any generic Republican at this point has a chance at beating him by 9 points. Perhaps in the budget polling, maybe
what poll are you talking about?
Yes. The recent Gallup poll actually shows a generic Republican beating him by 9 points. Now, I know everyone's pointing to this recent budget polling showing that Democrats are looking better, but that isn't showing Obama necessarily looking better because, frankly, the most important poll in the end is campaign 2012, and Barack Obama isn't looking that great.
One of the things I know about getting this cut, cap, and spend thing through and the fact that they want to vote on this balanced budget amendment, from what I understand, is that they want to get the members on record. They want to see how they're going to vote for this, to show the American people who's really serious about cutting and balancing the budget. And since the polls are also showing that Americans are really concerned about spending money that we don't have. So the fact that they put it on record, on notice, the thinking is you're trying to push the Dems into a corner to say, okay, here's what we put out there, Mr. President. Show us what you've got.
Well, I think they have to sort of go on record somehow. I mean, that's what they all got elected on.
But the bottom, it's to show, but basically to show the American people that here's where your representative stands on this issue.
Yeah,
to know if they're really serious
about it. They're going to come out
it.
of a funnel on the other end, or at least to me, it's where it seems like it's heading. Where what they're going to end up doing is, instead of approving or not, they're going to disapprove whatever we end up doing. So at least they went on record that they disapprove. At least that's my perspective. I could be wrong.
But you know what, Eric?
And she's way smarter than me.
No. But you know what, Eric, remember, you have 49 of 50 states, and of course that one state that doesn't have a balanced budget amendment in their own state is Vermont. They all have balanced budget amendments, and so the question is, why is it that our federal government doesn't have a balanced budget amendment? I'd like to add here as a piece of trivia, Thomas Jefferson, after the Constitution was put in place, he said, gee, why is it that we don't have an amendment that bars the government from actually borrowing from itself? So this is kind of like Thomas Jefferson's amendment kind of going in there a little bit late into the game, if anything.
Excuse me.
He didn't have Twitter. If he had Twitter, we would have done it a long time ago, right?
Let me ask you a little bit.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about some of the scare tactics that are being used by the president, saying, if we don't get this thing done, if we don't raise the ceiling, the little old lady in Florida is not going to receive her Social Security check, and the person over down in Texas is not going to get their pension check. But when in reality, this has nothing to do with Social Security. I mean, this Social Security debate is another one, and that there is a trust fund if there is a real crisis on hand.
But that's
and why does he do that? Why does he do that?
He does that because
when he knows it's not true.
If it's my mom, it hits home for me. If it's if you can personalize it, if you can bring it. I mean,
but it's not true. That's the point. That you have to make some very tough choices about prioritizing where you're going to, who you're going to pay, and what you're going to cut. But to use things like Social Security, I found it very disconcerting that he would go that direction.
Yeah, and you may be right, but and then Kerry will probably have some poll that I don't know about now, but I don't think the country's really looking at it that way.
Kerry, what do you think about all the fear-mongering that's going on?
Well, yeah, of course, I never like to see ads where like grandma's being pushed over a cliff, but here's the thing: is that you're absolutely right. I mean, there is a Social Security trust fund that has trillions in bonds that was actually meant to be sold if Social Security could go into default. But you see, there is another fund that everyone likes to sort of talk about. This like mythical fund that apparently Social Security is being paid into through our paychecks.
Through our FICA.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing about it is that nothing's being saved. It's all IOUs, so that's big and mythical. Unfortunately, though, Barack Obama likes to scare people and make it seem as if Grandma and Grandpa are going to, unfortunately, be eating cat food all year, which is complete nonsense.
What about the fact, why doesn't this White House put forth something out there saying these are the areas that we definitely will not consider cutting? Stopping military pay, stopping the funding of
Well, the stopping of the military pay. I don't care who you are. I lay that one out, please.
Yeah,
somebody.
well, why don't they just go on record saying, you know what, this is
not
going to be touched. We're not going to have to worry about this.
With President Obama, what you got is a guy who's now been in office long enough to get the way the town ticks, long enough to get the way the press works, and that's not what he does. For better or for worse, he doesn't do it that way. So he's not putting anything out. He is, to Kerry's point, he's holding everything a little bit close to the chest, so it's hard to figure out.